Welcome to the Sexy Freedom Media Podcast, a place to discuss pain, passion, and pursuits.
Let's get it. I want to feel alive.
Breathe.
Make some moves.
Protect the throne. This is Sexy Freedom Media Podcast.
Well, good morning to us.
Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon if you're listening in the afternoon like I am over here. Welcome to Sexy Freedom Media Podcast. It's your host, is Helen Edwards and
January Liddell. Aloha.
We have a really fun and exciting podcast show today for you. Before we get into it, we want to just say, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe now, Sexy Freedom Media. And if you have not left us a review and you've listened to our show before, go ahead and give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or write a review on iTunes and drop your Instagram handle in there. And we'll be sure to share it on our stories. So thanks for tuning in. January, what are we talking about today?
Girl, we are talking about money. We are talking about money, but more specifically, we are talking about how to teach our kids financial literacy. So that is what we're talking about. So are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go through it.
All right, let's do this. All right, so if you're listening, please grab a pen, grab a paper, or use your notes like I do on my iPhone or your smartphone, and let's jot these notes down. All right, number 1. This is how to teach 5 ways to teach a child financial literacy. Number 1, talk about money freely and normalize it. Helen, number 2.
Okay. I thought you were going to go through the 5. Number 2. I'm like, oh my God, I should have had it up. Okay. Number 2, take them grocery shopping. By doing so, the kids will see the prices of goods and the decision-making process of purchasing food for the family.
Number 3, talk to them about want versus need.
Number 4, have them participate in entrepreneurial events such as Lemonade Day, or have them create their own garage sale.
And number 5, set up their own bank account. So those are the 5 tips. I'm going to run it again, just so you have it. So please have your paper and your pad down. And write these notes down. Number 1, talk about money freely and normalize it. Number 2, take them grocery shopping. Number 3, talk to them about want versus need. Number 4, have them participate in entrepreneurial events. And number 5, set up their own bank accounts. All right, Helen. So here we go. We're going to break it down.
Yes.
So number 1 is talk about money freely and normalize it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I think that's brilliant. I think that a lot of parents sometimes don't talk about money. They think it's an adult subject, and they don't teach it in schools. They don't teach it, at home sometimes. So the child will grow up and kind of have to fend for themselves and learn it for the first time. And that can be very frustrating, because not only are they learning the concepts about financial literacy for the first time, but they're also struggling, fighting against their own money blueprint or hardwiring about money. Which if it's not talked about in the home or school, can be very challenging.
Yeah, it's quite interesting how majority of the people I talk to were not talked to about financial literacy. So as adults, we're left to kind of figure it out on our own. Sometimes making the same, mistakes that our parents did, So now we can change that cycle, right? And so the number 1 thing for me is to normalize it. So one of the things that I'm doing with my family is, 1, we actually host family meetings every Saturday at 9 a.m. So like without a hitch, that is like our meeting time. And we meet for a good 15, 20 minutes, so it's really not too long, but it's just for us to touch bases. And our theme for this month is money, everything money. But they've actually started this way before. So even before, I was intentionally talking about money, I've had this, and I wish I brought it down, but there's this little piggy bank. Okay. So it's a piggy bank, but it's shaped like an ATM machine. They even have a little card. So they have this card, got it on Amazon. So try to find it on Amazon if you have little ones. And I started my daughter at the age of 3. She's now 7. And so this little ATM machine, they're able to like deposit money. Well, they have to put in their ATM card and then put in a PIN number, and then they can deposit money or withdraw money. So it's nice because it keeps track of like how much they have in their little bank, right? So that's kind of like the first and foremost thing that I did for them was this little ATM bank. And I did talk to them about how much things were worth, right? And the value of $1. And I think that's the one thing that I feel it's important for us to like talk about it like it's like the weather, like how's the weather? It's like, how's your money? Like, where's your money at? And just the word money, I want it to be like comfortable for my kids to be like freely talk about it and to freely just say, oh yeah, I have, this much money. I need this much money to get whatever. So for me, normalizing the word money and the feeling, right? Because I know, Helen, we talked about this last podcast and we were talking about how, we had like money trauma when we were growing up, and that money trauma has shown up right in our adulthood.
Mhm.
And so now, what I want to share with those that have young children, so this is specifically for those who have young children, is that you can change that. You can change that cycle. And now you're able to, shift the mindset. So instead of that money trauma that we had as, kids, we can shift it so we can now talk about money freely to our children. Let me backtrack though. So as a parent too, we have to change that shift first. Okay, so before we start talking to our kids about financial literacy, make sure that your relationship with money has also shifted. So that's number one, talk about money freely.
I think that too, if you are shifting at the same time with your kids, like if you're an adult and you're just learning, I like how you wrote these 5 tips from Ramsey Solution under number 1, because these are really great for both parents and kids if you are just starting that journey, or if you're not, towards the kids. You broke them down to A through E, and I'll talk about, let's see, letter A. Number 1, start slow, answer kids' questions about money. I like how you wrote that because it's an opening the door to have a discussion about money in the home.
Yeah, definitely starting slow. So like I mentioned with that ATM, it was a little machine, something tangible that they can understand. And then whenever they got money from the tooth fairy or money from grandma, grandpa, auntie, uncle, then they were able to put in that money into that ATM. So yeah, that is letter A, is start slow and answer the kids' questions about money. Letter B is be honest. If you regret going to debt or not saving, tell your kids. Yeah, so to me that's important because a lot of the times I think my parents were kind of they didn't really talk to me about money because they wanted to handle it on their own,
Sure.
But I think if we want to change that cycle, it's really important to be honest with your children about where your money is, like the value and all that, because otherwise they're going to be like, oh, money grows on trees and I can get whatever I want, so be honest with them. And, for me, I do share what I went through as a kid, and where they are right now. So letter B is be honest.
I think for that one, just real quick, some people will say, oh, I don't agree with that. I want to protect my kids and they don't need to know that we're in financial debt or in trouble. Well, here's the thing. Sometimes when you don't tell them you don't have to go into specific details if you want to shield and protect your kids from feeling stressed that you are. But one of the things is it comes out in your actions. And for my mom specifically, a single mom of 5 kids, and then my dad every now and then getting us becoming a single dad of 5 kids when he had us, they wouldn't tell us about their financial woes, but they sure would let us know we're broke. We don't have any money right now. It's going to be a long time before we have money. So just those words were kind of like going into our brains and becoming a cycle and a belief about money that we started growing up with. Oh, we're never going to have money. It's going to be a long time before we have money, So that's why I like what you were talking about. Be honest. So say it in a way that is not going to burden them, but also like say it in a way where when they get older, they understand what debt is. They understand how to handle it as well. So I like that, January.
Yeah, I think so the way that I handle that is I'll say, well, we bought this month and it's on our credit card, so we need to pay that off. So let's pay this off first before we, think about getting something else. So to me, there is a way to say it in a positive way that's not so like burdening, like you said, to the child, because that can play with your mind, because then a parent is creating that scarcity mindset, that like anxiety about money. And that is the one thing that I'm trying to encourage for us is that we can manage our money.
Mm-hmm.
We can manage our money well. So as adults, we can manage our money. And it's vital for us to be teaching our children how to manage their money as well. So yeah, so be honest, when I do say like, hey, we do have this in our credit card, we have to pay it off, before we start buying something else. To me, that feels a little bit more like, one, it's genuine, it's true. Two, it's giving them kind of an idea, well, oh, okay, so we already reached this kind of threshold or this budget, then let's get that done, let's get that settled, and then we can think about something else, or we can save for that next thing.
Yes.
All right, C. Talk values, not figures, saving, budgeting, paying down debt, and giving. And I like that, talking about values, not figures, because when we do talk about figures, it can be overwhelming and a little too much for a young child to, truly understand that. But when you talk about values and how like, oh, we worked really hard, and so as you work hard, you should reward yourself. But of course, when you reward yourself, be mindful of how much you're spending because you don't want to spend your whole paycheck on it, right? So yeah, so values, not figures.
Yes. So let's see. Number or letter. Was it D?
D.
Set family goals. We have no spend days.
So when I said that, set family goals, each family is going to be different, right? So, and you set up how much money you want to spend for that week. That could be your fun money, right? How much fun money do you want to spend for the week? How much, what is your allowance? So for certain kids, they do get allowances. What is that? How does that look? For us, we have no spend days. So there are days where it's like, okay, today is a no spend day, and that means no buying online, no buying at the stores, and so that's a no spend days. So that's our goal, one of our goals.
I love that. E, learn about money together. Listen to podcasts together or watch YouTube videos on money.
Yeah. So there's so much information out there. That is the beauty of the internet, right? We have accessibility to podcasts that talk about finances, that talk about money and wealth. We also have YouTube videos, I was just watching one last week. Gosh, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was amazing because it was geared towards children. And yeah, so there's all sorts of ways to learn about money. And all of these are tips when talking to children about money.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned these are some of Dave Ramsey's because like I mentioned in our last podcast, I took the Dave Ramsey program for $100 and it was a 6-week course on every Tuesday at a church. And me and my son, we don't go to church or anything like that. So when I dragged him out to one of the classes on a Tuesday night, he had his arms crossed and he was like, why am I here, Mom? We don't believe in this. And I was just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. First of all, it's not that we don't believe in this. We just we don't practice going to church. And I was like, I want you to not live like, I don't want you to be stuck in a mindset. I want you to be open to everything. I want you to be open to everything. And I want you to expand your mind. And because there's always a message out there for you. So when I took him, he was a teenager. His arms were crossed. He was kind of pissed. He didn't want to go. And that day, Dave Ramsey, or not Dave Ramsey, but one of his teachers was talking about insurance. And my son he'd never heard the word insurance. I didn't really know much about insurance at the time. So it was brand new for both of us. And at the end, he was like, wow, I didn't know this was a part of something that we had to learn in life and for adult life. And I said, as an adult myself, I didn't even know it was important. So I said, see, we're learning. This is great. So yeah, take them to classes with you. like January said.
I love that we're talking about this because, like I said, I do want to normalize. I want to normalize the idea of money, the relationship with money, because money isn't inherently bad, right? It's not, how like there's that saying like money is the root of all evil. Well, it's not. It's how you make of it. It's a tool. And for me, that's really how I phrase it with my children is that we need money to have our fun and to make memories, right? This is how we invest in our family is through money. And so I don't worship money, but it is definitely a tool that I use for freedom. All right. So let's move on. So number 2, take them grocery shopping. I love this because I've always taken, they're like my sidekicks. They're always there, right? And they see me reading labels. I don't remember like teaching them to read labels, or at least I don't remember. But I noticed that my daughter the other day when we went to grocery shopping, she was like, "Mom, there's this much sugar." I'm like, okay, looking at labels. So there's so many teaching, lessons to be learned as you go grocery shopping. One of them is reading labels and nutrition. And of course, it's looking at the prices of goods, and talking to them about that as well. So many values to learn when grocery shopping. One, they'll learn about nutrition and labels. That's letter A. What's the B, Helen?
B, a way to budget, and C, teaches needs versus wants. My mom, this is funny. My mom, she was doing her best to teach us about money, even though she started learning as an adult. And one of the things she would do, because I got to mention this every time, a single mom of 5 kids is ridiculous. All right. That's a lot of kids. And I know there's people out there with even more kids, even 2 kids or 1 is tough, but she would give us each $2 in food stamps, And we would go to the store and she'd say, okay, I need you to get 1 fruit, 1 piece of bread. And I think it was like 1 snack, and that was it. And obviously bread was sold as a loaf. So we'd have to join together at that time, the five of us, to pick out our loaf of bread. And then we had to pick 1 fruit and 1 snack. And when you have like $2, it was like 2 to 5. I can't remember, but I remember it was a certain amount. We'd have to go in there. We'd have to learn how to stay within that budget. And that's my earliest memory of grocery shopping and staying on a budget. And I thought that was really smart of her to give us the amount of money and try to stay within that budget for our lunch that day.
Wow, I commend your mom. Great job, Mom. Because she had even though it was $2, still it's $2. That's something. That's like a figure for you to see. Well, this is how much I have. So then let me try to, utilize that. So good job to Mom. So the other thing, so that does teach budget. Love it. And that's like the one word that it can be looked at as kind of like a dirty word, budget, but it really isn't. It's like a great word, budgeting, because then it's like, okay, you want to be able to. So for example, when we got this house, I knew that there was a threshold for us when we bought this house. I said, well, I didn't want to go over this much because then all of our money would be tied into just paying for the mortgage. And I didn't want that. So I said, well, let's just, put it at this much. Then we're able to still have our fun, right? We'll have our house, but we'll still have our fun. So we did. We bought this house, and I'm glad that we kept to that threshold. And that's the one thing that I'm trying to teach our children too, is like, okay, set a budget, like, yes, you have this money. That doesn't mean use it all. It means like, spend a little, save a little, and share a little. So that is the one thing that I'm trying to teach them, is to share, and to give back. Right. All right. So want versus needs. How do you teach, your son want versus needs?
Well, for me specifically, one of the things that, again, going back to my mom, that she taught us was, and it started not with money, it started with clothing in the house. And I had mentioned this before in another podcast. If a new clothing item came in the house, we had to give up one. So that kind of taught us the art of letting go, and also taught us do we really need this item versus, do we want this item? Because we do want the new clothing. We want it real bad. So we'd have to find something in our drawer that we necessarily didn't need. And that's how we learned how to let it go. And of course, we need our socks and underwears. We need, we need our warm clothing for the winter. We need sweaters and, all these things. So that's kind of how we learn the want versus need. And when you really break it down, that was a really important practice, because it carried on through my whole entire life, and it's carried on into my adult life as well. And when it circles back to money, it makes sense, because everything in your closet is a form of money. It took money to purchase that item. And that's what you get money. You get money so that way you can sustain your life, your needs, your wants, your clothes, everything. So in transparency, it's all a form of financialness somewhere. It's a form of money. It's a form of energy. So yeah, so that was the wants versus needs for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the needs are food, shelter, clothing, safety, healthcare, emotional support. Like those are all needs. And then wants are everything that is not a need and things that are often still important for mental and emotional health. So my children and I like talk about that, right? We talk about like wants versus needs, and we'll look at certain things and say, okay, well, was that a want or was that a need? And it's fun to play that game with them. And there actually is a game. So there's a game, and I got this from the Ramsey solution. And this game, you can play with your children. It's you get a pen and paper. You can choose like whatever prize that you'd like, whoever wins like gets the prize, or they can both get a prize if you choose, right? Because they're playing this game. So get a paper and pen and go to each room, and for 20 seconds, and if you have little ones, you can help them write down, for them. For 20 seconds, write down as many needs that they see in that bedroom or that room. And so they'll write it down, and each of the needs gets 1 point. And then discuss the needs, discuss their list, and talk to them about all these needs. Yeah. And then whoever wins the most points, wins the game, but you can treat them out because hey, you did this like exercise with them. It's really important to talk about wants versus needs, because sometimes we, even as adults, can get things confused, right? Like I need that like Apple Watch, like I need it because it's going to like help me with my mental health. It's going to help me with whatever, right? Like exercise goals and all that. But really, is it a want or is it a need? Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do gotta say, for me, the wants versus needs, I was only taught like a certain way of thinking about it, which I just explained. But I love, January, that you're kind of breaking it down for your kids, because that want versus needs mentality, I didn't learn until I was an adult. And when I started learning about it, I was like, oh, again, going back to that struggle between my old wiring versus this like new idea of wants versus needs. So girl, bravo on you for teaching your kids. And parents out there, really like listen to what January is saying and do some of these, because they're fabulous. And I gotta say, my son learned wants versus needs, not from me really, but from his dad. So I commend you, father of Elijah Edwards, out there, because he taught him these ideas. And I believe he taught him because he was the sole provider. He was the sole custody of our son. And so our son was with him the majority of the time. So he was a single father. So of course he had to teach him the wants versus needs. So bravo on all of you parents out there who are doing that. That's just wonderful.
That's so nice. That's awesome that you commended him. So thank you. Thank you on behalf of him. Yeah, it's vital because I think that's kind of the heart, right? That's the heart of it all, because that's the emotional part. And money, can be it is an emotional thing, when you think about it. So when you really step back and really just reflect on the want versus need, that'll help you. I was watching this documentary on money on Netflix, and this man, he was a civil engineer and he retired early, and he lives like below his means. And I know that's something that I'm working on, is living below our means, because even if you have all this money or whatever, that doesn't mean spend it all, right? It means like, well, one, are you saving up for retirement? Okay. And I know this is for kids, but this is just a side note. One, are you saving up for retirement? That's important. Number two, are you investing? It's important to invest. And we can teach our kids to invest. There's actually apps out there for children to learn how to invest. Three, the whole budgeting, and then saving and sharing, right? So those are all aspects of one, trying to gauge where we're at as adults, and two, because kids are going to follow what you do. It's not so much what you say to them, but it's what you do. So that's the one thing that I do want to impart, is that it's vital for us to talk the talk.
All good stuff. All right, so let's jump over to number 4. Have them participate in entrepreneurial events such as Lemonade Day, or have them create their own garage sale, etc. This is honestly probably my favorite one, because this one I got at a young age, because my mother was an entrepreneur, and I seen her constantly go up and down with entrepreneurial ideas and ventures. But of course, it was really tough on her at the time. But I learned that entrepreneurial skill from her, that entrepreneurial desire. All of my siblings did. And this is where I was strong as a teacher for my son. So yeah, thank you. This is a good one.
So my children, so Nina was 3 at the time. And then Junior was, how old is he? 10. So 3 and 10. And in Texas, where we were stationed at, so we've only moved once. We've been here in Hawaii, and then, they sent us to Texas. We were there for 2 years. And within those 2 years, we did that particular event, Lemonade Day. And I love it because it teaches the kids, one, creativity. So they're able to think outside of the box. We used like pallets. We used pallets, they're free, right? So you go grab these pallets, and then we created their lemonade stand using the pallets. And then we had like a business plan. So the kids had their own business plan, what they wanted to sell, the theme of their lemonade stand. And then they also taught us, how to budget, how to save, share. Those were all like important things, right? So the Lemonade Day was it was the weekend. It was the weekend, and the kids created their own lemonade. They had like this, it's called Lemonade Luau. So they created this Lemonade Luau. It looks just like, it's so cute. It was a very cute little lemonade stand, and they sold it. So now they're able to also talk to people. So that was one thing that I really liked about it, is that now they're interacting, with people, and they're selling their stuff. Nina was like laying them because it was Lemonade Luau. So that was kind of their like trademark, was that they laid them. And they made a good amount of money. I think they made over 700 that weekend, which was amazing. I'm like, oh my gosh. So it taught them confidence, so not only did it teach them about money, but it also taught them confidence, and that you work hard, right? You work hard. You can get paid for working hard, and you can use that money to buy what you want, or you can use that money to share. So yeah, Lemonade Day was amazing. I'm sure there's other events out there.
They
Helen?
do. So out here, shout out to Casper, Wyoming, because this is something cool that they do out here as a community. They have Lemonade Day, where they encourage all the kids to get out there and create lemonade stands and do that. And I remember seeing it every day, a few times a year. I think it's once or twice a year. I can't remember, but I asked my fiance, I was like, wow, there's a lot of kids doing lemonade stands today. And he says, oh yeah, they do that every something. And it's to teach the kids to get out there and take part in the community, and also like entrepreneur skills. I was like, wow, as a small community, that's fascinating. I love that.
Yeah, it was so good, because we had, I think, like a couple workshops. So there were workshops to teach how to create the lemonade stand, to create they even have a tip box. So we had a tip box. But you can do whatever you want for the lemonade stand. Junior was selling jokes. So he was selling jokes for like 25 cents and people would do it. People would be like, all right, here's like, a couple quarters, whatever. What's the joke? And he had all these jokes lined up. So it was great. It was great because they thought outside of the box,
I
Yeah.
love that idea. That Junior, shout out Junior. That's amazing. I love that. One of the things I taught my son is the bubble gum machine. So we went to the swap meet and he got, because I'd say, here's $2 at the swap meet. Like, I want you to buy something that you're going to make money, invest something. So think of this money like you're investing. This is how I taught him how to invest. So he had $2 and I remember he found this bubble gum machine, little iron one. We filled it up with bubble gum. And then he put it at my friend's house because she always had friends over. He said, can I keep this here? Yes. So we'd always go over there. And I think it was like 3 weeks had passed and he had like almost $5 in quarters. And so I said, what are you going to do with that $5? Because again, it's an entrepreneurial teaching that I'm trying to teach and find out where his brain and thought is at with it. And he said, I'm going to take this $5 and I'm going to go buy another bubblegum machine. So that's what he did. He went and bought another bubblegum machine. He asked another one of my friends, can I leave this at your house? Yeah, sure. So he left it there. So now I said, do you see what you're doing? You have now 2 businesses at 2 different locations making you money. And he said, yeah. So then he started making money from that one. And I realized what I had just taught him was it's basically real estate. That's kind of like what we do as adults. We have these different locations. We're making money for people staying in them. And this blueprint can be carried on in any part of your life, like I have with my multiple streams of income. There are different areas where I can make money off of them. So that is another idea, how you can teach your kids how to be an investor versus just a business owner.
You are genius. Yes, that is an amazing thing to do to teach your son that he can now like invest. So one of the other things, and I didn't put this down, is being a money multiplier, which is what you taught your son to be, is to be a money multiplier. We are meant to do that, to multiply money, because there is an abundance of money. If we really think about it, there's so many different ways to, have like streams of income, right? So that is a bonus, right? Because the 5th one is set your bank account, but that bonus is really being a money multiplier. And I like Helen's idea of the gumball machine, different houses. That's awesome.
Well, I think the cool thing too, January, is you have young kids right now and you're teaching them all these things. My son is now 23 and we can have these conversations and it blows my mind how smart he is with his money and the things that we taught him when he was younger, both me and his dad, that he's implemented in his life now. One thing he said to me is, because I said, do you do stocks or know anything about stocks? Because I couldn't remember whether I taught him or his dad taught him. And he said, oh yeah, I've been investing since 7th grade. And I was just like, wow. Like, I was just like, oh, I know I didn't teach him about stocks because at the time I didn't know about stocks. So I was like, somebody taught him about stocks. There's probably his dad. He's really smart. And look at him. I mean, another thing I taught him, and I know it's probably in one of our 4 that we talked about, but was when he bought his first vehicle. I'm really big on no debt, no credit card debt, nothing. So when he had first approached me at 16 or 17, I believe it was 16, he wanted to buy a car. And I remember he said, he called me up, Mom, Dad said, if you co-sign with me and him, he'll get me a car. And I said, I'm sorry, but no. And he was so upset. I mean, he was just like, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Like, he was so mad. But I explained to him, I'll give you another option. You get a job and you save up and I'll match everything you save. So if you save $1,000, I'll match it 1,000. If you save 3,000, I'll match it 3,000. And he, because now if I wouldn't co-sign, his dad wouldn't co-sign. That was the deal. So that was like his second best option. All right. Even though he was mad, he did it. So he rode his bike every day in the rain. He'd tell me all the time, I almost got hit, trying to make me feel bad. I was like, oh, that's too bad. I'm glad you're safe, So he He did. He worked at his first job for 2 years and he saved up the money. And I said what I said I was going to do. I matched every part of it. And he bought his first truck cash. And I remember thinking, he told me, you know, Mom, I'm actually glad that we went this route because now I know it's paid in full. He goes, I have friends who are already in debt because they're paying these thousands of dollars in car debt. And he goes, I'm so glad I'm not there. There's nothing holding me back. So that idea came from another Dave Ramsey suggestion that you match your kids on what they make and teaches them to respect their money, teaches them to save up, and it also teaches them to stay out of debt. And that was the best thing that we ever did. I want to say I ever did for my child. So now he pays cash for all his vehicles.
Wow, that is awesome, Helen. I love that you said no. I love that you said no to co-signing. The other thing about co-signing, just a side note, is that if anything was to have happened to your son and whoever co-signed, right? If whoever, right, co-signed, then they're liable, right? They're liable for that debt. So it's a good thing that you didn't do that unless you're able to pay it all off if you want to. I mean, that's your choice, but co-sign is usually never something that I agree to because I know that I would be liable. So and I know it's your son. So what I like that you did was that you said, I'm going to match it. That is a better thing because then you're still helping him. It's just in a different way. So
Yeah.
kudos to you. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's different for everybody. This is the route that we took, especially like, I didn't have the cash at the time to just say, hey, I'll buy it for you. Like my sister did. My sister just bought her kids vehicles because they were good students and they'd work well. And she had the financial means to just say, all right, surprise, I bought you your first vehicle, happy birthday or things like that. And they're well off with money because they learned from her. So it's different for everybody. Some people that they think that's the best way to do it. And, I'm not knocking anybody's way of doing things. I just know for us, this was the best way to teach him in the long run. All of these experiences he's going to go through, especially debt. Debt is one of the worst things out there. And I really didn't want him to struggle like me and his dad did.
Yeah, no, that was smart because you're teaching him the value of a dollar, which I appreciate because you're right. So Bill Gates, I don't know if you're familiar, but with Bill Gates, he's actually not leaving his kids like an inheritance. I don't think. I think he said something like, no, they have to work hard for it, and there's that, side and to each his own, right? Teach his own. I think for me, I'm the same way as you. Like I would match, the money. Right now, my son's saving for his car. So he was 13 when he started saving. He's 14 now. So he's saving up for his car. I do believe in paying things for, with cash. I don't like debt as well. And so cash is golden, and so I commend you again, for continuing to like teach your son that. And your son is like in his 20s now. So that's hope for me, because that means that like when my kids are at that age, then they're also going to utilize the lessons that they've learned when they were younger.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So, all right. So the fifth thing we're going to go into is set up their own bank account. I like that.
Yeah, so it's vital because even at a young age, so I think we started Nina with her bank account at 4. I think it was at 4. And with Junior, I think it took, I don't remember when we started his account, but anyway, with Nina, because it's very recent, 4 years old. So now she has this account. And I think I mentioned in another podcast, she sold her kitchen. And, my husband and I talked about it and we're like, well, this is her kitchen. It's not ours. So, she has to have this money, right? And we're like, yeah. So we agreed, okay, this is her money. So I took her to the bank and she put in her, the ATM, she put in the PIN number and in the machine that we use, we can just put in that lump, cash, and then it just counts it for her. And then she got her receipt. She's like, oh, this is mine. So it's so cute because she's 7, right? So she's little and she's like, oh my gosh, this is my money. And it's like ownership, right, for her. So she feels confident. She feels like amazing that she has this much money, that she's saved up.
That's
So yeah,
so important, January. I love that
Mhm.
you're doing that, especially with a lot of kids out there who lose their parents sometimes. Not saying I don't wish that on you guys, but there's kids out there who've lost their parents, they become orphans. You know, they've going through a lot of things without their parents. Can you imagine if you taught your kids at a young age how to save their money, how to put it in their bank account, you know, and then they can use that to their abilities if something were to happen to you as they get older, you know, they can say, I learned this from my parents. And you know, even if nothing does happen, they still going to carry that onto their adulthood like I did. My mom taught us at a young age exactly what you're telling me right now. I remember my mom teaching us how to write checks, and we'd take our checks in our deposit form and we'd walk to the bank because we didn't have a car, and we deposit $1.18 or whatever it is, you know, and we deposit it, and we felt like we were growing in riches. And my mom carried on that practice with us until she lost her job, and then we had to move again. And there we go. We lost our bank account. Well, we didn't lose our bank accounts. The bank was always there, but we lost that ability to learn because my mom was scrambling. So, you know, but still, that is forever embedded in my mind. And you teaching your daughter that, and anybody else out there who's teaching your kids how to write checks, how to invest or save their money in the bank, and to have a bank of their own, that's teaching them so much value right there. God, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I think it's vital. I don't want them to make the same mistakes I did, as an adult. And so I think for me, shopping, I love shopping. Like shopping is like, and so there prior to me like shifting, I was always like, well, I deserve that. I need that. And it was always like a need, right? Or sorry, yeah, it was a need, but really it was a want, right? And so I've shifted from that, and now I'm in this like different mind frame, of course with the kids I've always like, okay, what am I going to teach the kids, and what do I want them to value, as an adult and when they grow older. And so definitely shifted that mindset. I'm really happy I did. It feels like freedom. It really does. So, our podcast is Sexy Freedom Media Podcast. And being able to manage money well is freedom, because then I don't feel tied down to it. I don't feel like money is getting a hold of me. I'm getting a hold of money because this is what I want. This is, and I want my kids to have that same mind frame, is that they are able to manage their money well. They are able to spend it as much as they want or as little as they want, save it and share it, right? So spend, save, share. So that's really like
Invest.
and invest. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, if there's anything that I am always constantly reminding my son, it's I want him to be like Robert Kiyosaki wrote that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you've never read it, it is wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And it's basically on how to shift your mind from being an employee to a business owner to an investor. And the goal is to become, basically a financial freedom in whatever endeavors you're in, and have the freedom to be an investor, after an investor, like entrepreneur, have that freedom to live the life that you want without having to work really, and just do whatever you want. I mean, obviously there's going to be some type of work that you're going to want your whole life, but that's the ultimate goal. So for me, my son being older now, I'm constantly trying to remind him in a very fun manner to strive to be the investor. You can be the employee, because employee is going to teach you a lot about life. Employees, don't skip the employee part. Employee teaches you how to respect your workplace, how to respect your customers. There's so many skills. A lot of people just go straight to investor, and that's great. But if you ever meet those type of people, you'll see that they're lacking some some skills with customer service. But no offense to any of you out there. I'm sure you gained it through reading books or something like that. But really, it's cool if you can kind of find your place and dive in all four of the quadrants he talks about. Don't you agree, January?
Yeah, the investing part is actually really vital. And I like that you mentioned that, because save, spend, share, invest. Those are the four, that is vital. The investing part, what I love about it is that, we did mention it earlier, being a money multiplier. Because I want to teach my kids how to make money while they're sleeping, right? That's really vital for me, is to teach them while they're sleeping. I'm still learning though. So I'm still kind of in that moment there. Let me take that back. There is a portion where I am investing. I'm investing in a portion where it's like my money is protected. So I haven't quite invested in stock. Let me take that back. I have invested in stocks, but not a lot, because I don't want to lose money. That's like the one thing for me, is that I don't want to lose money. I'd rather just continue to make money. So that is one thing that I want to teach my kids is, and I'm so sorry, it's a little loud. I want to teach my kids how to make money while they're sleeping.
Yes. What's funny is I talked to Elijah the other day and he says, Mom, you'll never guess which book I'm reading, which I got to say, I love that he reads books on self-development, because I started raising him reading books on self-development. And I said, well, which book are you reading? And he goes, it's one that you told me to read years ago. He says it like years ago. I mean, he's 23, like what, when you were 15 or something? And he says, Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That was probably the first book I read about changing my mindset, getting into the way of a thinker, of developing wealth in your life. And when I read that book for the first time, that's actually the book that got me into public speaking in 2008. So about 16, 17 years ago now. Gosh, I don't even know how long ago that was. But I remember when I read Think and Grow Rich, it just changed my whole perspective about money, wealth, financial freedom. And when I'd go speak at these at the shelters, I would raffle off a gift bag. And in that gift bag, it had the book, Think and Grow Rich. And I just thought, how wild is that? My son, circling back years later, is now reading Think and Grow Rich. And I said, how do you like it? He said, I'm 30 pages in and it's already starting to shift my mindset. And I said, oh my God, get ready to be rich, baby.
Oh my gosh, that's a great book. It's a great book to revisit,
It's fabulous.
read it and read it over again. I mean, it's an amazing book. So, great job, Elijah, that you finally listened to Mom to read that book. So yay. Definitely a mind shift.
All right, everybody. So I think we'll just go ahead and end it on that note. I feel like we've given so many great tips, the 5 tips we've given, we've broken them down. I think there's a lot for our audience to write down, to also take in and see what they want to use. If you have kids out there, please teach them about money literacy, about financial literacy. It's so important, because if you know what it's like to struggle with a broke, scarcity or lack mindset, and how challenging that is, we don't want our kids to go through that. And we also want to teach them how to, like you mentioned, the last one, give, share. That is so important. Anytime you have anything coming in, you've got to have something going out, and giving and sharing is the best way. They always say the magic of giving is in 10%, giving 10% of your income. It's said throughout churches, it's said throughout divine spiritual practices, all throughout history. That's just a magic number. You necessarily don't have to give 10%, but it's a magic number. And it could be 10% of your clothing. It could be 10% of your heart, of your knowledge, 10% of just whatever it is. And, whatever you receive, try to give something back. And like going back to what January said, they say the root of all evil is money, or money's the root of all evil. And it's really not. It's your heart. Your heart is really where it's at. And I'd say sugar is the root of all evil, but I'm not going to get into that. But really,
that's for another podcast.
I know. So I want to end it on this note. Please give back. Please share. And if you've had any value from this show today, please share it with your friends. January, any last words?
You said it all, Helen. I love that the last thing we're mentioning is to share and give back, because that is important. It is energy. Money is energy. The way that you look at it, the way you think about it, it's all energy. So what you think about it, it will happen. So if you think positively about it, it will happen. So you just got to think positively. But that is it. You can find me on Facebook and on Instagram, VIP Finance Builders. You can find me on LinkedIn, January Liddell. I am open and transparent. You can ask me any questions, but I really focus on retirement. So I am a retirement specialist. So looking forward to helping you with your needs.
And I'm Helen Edwards. And if you haven't received my book or got your copy of Nothing Sexier Than Freedom, go to Amazon. You can get on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. And that's it for us. We'd like to thank our audience. Again, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go on our Facebook page, Sexy Freedom Media. Leave us a review, 5 stars on Spotify. And again, write a review on iTunes and leave your handle on there, and we will go ahead and share it. So thanks for listening, everybody. Muchas gracias. Have a great day.
Aloha.
Want to hear more?
Visit us at SexyFreedomMedia.com.